Good day everyone, especially to you, Mr. Bamba. So today we will be tackling about European mythology. So what is Irish mythology? Irish mythology is a branch of Celtic mythology which details the origin of stories and deities, kings, and heroes of ancient Ireland. Celtic mythology encompasses the collection of Brittonic, Scottish, and Irish ancient beliefs and practices passed down by oral tradition. So, Irish mythology is like a special storybook for ancient Ireland, and it tells us about how the land was created, the gods and goddesses who lived there, and the great kings and heroes who ruled and fought. It's part of a bigger storybook called Celtic mythology. Celtic mythology includes stories from different parts of ancient Celtic lands like Britain, Scotland, and Ireland. So these stories were passed down from one generation to another. And among these, Irish mythology is the best preserved owing to the Christian monks that entered the tales into the written historical record during the Middle Ages. So of all Celtic stories, the Irish one are the most complete and well kept. So this is because of the Christian monks who lived in Ireland during the Middle Ages. They thought that these stories were important, so they wrote them down and saved them for future generations. Ancient Irish myths are measured into 4 cycles. Each cycle details a group of pre-Christian deities, legendary heroes, or ancient kings, and the 4 cycles together chronologize the fabled settlement of the Emerald Isle. So ancient Irish stories are divided into 4 groups, like chapters in a book, and each group tells the stories of a different set of gods, heroes, or kings from before Christianity came to Ireland. So first is the mythological cycle. The first Irish mythological cycle details the arrival and disappearance of the first inhabitants of Ireland, a group of godlike or supernatural people called Tuatha De Danann. So the first group of Irish stories is like a chapter about the very first people lived in Ireland. So they were not ordinary people because they were magical and powerful like gods. And these people were called the Tuatha De Danann, which means people of the goddess Danu. The story tells us how they arrived in Ireland, what amazing things they did, and how they eventually disappeared from the land. The disappearance of these people gave rise to the Sea, more contemporary mythical Irish creatures, including leprechauns, changelings, and banshee. So after the Tuatha De Danann disappeared, a new kind of magical being appeared in Ireland, called the Sea. These are the creatures we know from Irish folklore today, like leprechauns, changelings, and banshees. So leprechauns are small, mischievous fairies who love gold. Changelings are fairies who steal human babies and leave their own children in their place. And the banshee is a woman who wails and cries when someone is about to die. So it's like the story about the Tuatha De Danann were replaced by a new magical beings, filling the land with new kinds of wonder. That was the first cycle all about. And the next cycle is called the Ulster cycle. This is the second cycle that is thought to have taken place in the 1st century, around the time of the birth of Jesus Christ. And it details quests and feats of ancient heroes, specifically in the areas of Ulster in the north and Leinster in the east. So the second group of Irish stories is called the Ulster cycle. It is like a chapter about heroes who lived around the time of Jesus Christ. And they were real people, but their stories are filled with amazing adventures and impossible feats. The Ulster cycle mostly takes place in the northern part of Ireland called Ulster. The heroes in these stories go on quests, fight monsters, and perform incredible deeds that make them legendary figures. So, In this chapter, it sets around the time Jesus was born, so it's a little closer to our own history. So these stories are about brave knights, powerful warriors, and amazing adventures. And they take place mostly in two parts of Ireland, the Ulster in the north and Leinster in the east. So the Ulster cycle is like a big storybook about the heroes of Ulster. The most famous hero is was a warrior who is so strong and brave, and he was almost like a god. And his name is Cuchulainn. He was born with magical power. Even as a baby, he was strong and fearless. He was trained by a powerful warrior woman named Scathach. After that, he fought many battles to defend his people from invaders, and he was known for his amazing strength and his fierce fighting skills. And he also has a great power. And he fought many battles to defend his people. And his special weapon was called the Gay Bulge, a magical spear that could never miss its target. And when he fought his enemy, the Queen of Connacht, she wanted to steal a magical bowl from Ulster. And Cuchulainn had to stop her. So he bravely fought her, and a huge battle that lasted for weeks. He fought many enemies, but he was also wounded and eventually died. So the Ulster cycle is full of stories about Cuchulainn and other Ulster heroes, and its world of magic, adventure, and bravery. And it is also one of the most important parts of Irish mythology. Let's move forward to the third cycle, which is the Fenian cycle. So the third cycle recounts the journey of the hero Fionn Maccombhaile and his mighty warriors known as the Fianna. So the third group of Irish stories is like a chapter about a legendary hero named Fionn Maccombhaile and his band of warriors called the Fianna. So it's like a storybook about a group of knights who go on amazing adventures. So here's a summary. So Fionn was a powerful and skilled warrior. He led the Fianna, a group of brave warriors who protected Ireland from invaders and monsters. So they were like a special army known for their courage and strength. The Fianna were known for their amazing feats of strength and skill. They could run faster than horses, jump over mountains, and throw spears with incredible accuracy. And Fionn has a special power called the salmon knowledge. He ate a magical salmon that gave him wisdom and knowledge. The Fianna went on many adventures. They fought monsters, rescued princesses, and explored the wilds of Ireland. So they were like the heroes of ancient Ireland, protecting their land from danger. The Fianna's most famous enemy was Ailinn. He is a giant who wanted to conquer Ireland, and Fionn and the Fianna fought bravely against him and eventually defeated him. So the Fenian cycle is full of stories about Fionn Maccombhaile, his son Uisen, and other Fianna warriors, and Oscar. And it's a world of adventure, magic, and bravery, and it is also one of the most beloved part of Irish mythology. So that was the Fenian cycle all about. And the last and fourth cycle is the historical cycle. The final Irish mythological cycle known as the cycle of the kings. So it is the history and genealogy of ancient Irish royals as told by court poets. So the final group of Irish stories is like a history book, but a very special kind of history book. So it's called the Cycle of the Kings, and it tells the stories of the great kings of Ireland, their families, and their kingdoms. And these stories were written down by poets who work for the kings, so they're like official stories that tells us who was important and who ruled Ireland in the past. So here's what you have to know about the Cycle of the Kings. The Cycle of the Kings is a long and detailed history, but I'll make it short. It starts with the very first king of Ireland, and it tells us about their lives, their battles, and their families. So it's like a family tree that goes back thousands of years. And the most famous king in the cycle of the kings is Con Ketchatach, who ruled Ireland for many years. He was a wise and powerful king who brought peace and prosperity to his people. The stories in the cycle of the kings are full of drama and adventure. There are stories about battles, betrayals, and revenge. It's like reading a series of historical novels, but with a magical twist. So it's about the culture and beliefs of ancient Ireland, and it shows us how the Irish people lived, what they valued, and how they believed in the power of their gods and heroes. So it is a fascinating window in the past and tells us about the people who lived in Ireland long ago, and it helps us understand the history and culture of Emerald Isle. So that was the four cycle all about. For centuries, Irish folklore passed through generations by oral tradition, though by the 11th century, they had been written down by monks. As a result, threads of Christianity are present in the stories that would have had no notion of Christian faith. So, for a long time, these stories were only told by word of mouth from one person to another. It's like a game of telephone, but then around the year or around 11th century, monks started writing these stories down, and they thought these stories were important, so they wanted to save them. But here's this interesting part: the monks were Christians, and they believed in God. So sometimes when they wrote down the stories, they added a little bit of their own Christian beliefs. And it's like they were trying to blend the old stories with the new beliefs. So we might find the story about a magical creature and also a bit of Christian symbolism. So, for example, the mythological cycle refers to the first settlers of Ireland as supernatural, godlike, or skilled in magic, but never as gods, deities, or holy entities, though they would have been sacred to ancient people. The stories and characters of Irish mythology broadly fit into four main cycles. Each cycle, which I have mentioned before, each cycle has its own unique feel and energy. It is as if in each cycle is a discrete world is brought into being with its own heroic archetypes. So its own compendium of stories and a resulting set of values and beliefs. And each cycle evokes a world. The stories are essential in world making. So each book has its own style, its own heroes, and its own way of looking at the world. The first book tells us about the very first people who live in Ireland. They're described as a magical, powerful, like they have special abilities. But they are not called gods or deities in the stories. It is like the people who wrote the stories were trying to describe something even more powerful than a god. It's like they were saying these peoples were so amazing. They were beyond our understanding. And each of the four books creates its own world, its own kind of magic, and own set of values. And the second book is about brave warriors and heroes like knights and quests. The third book is about a group of magical warriors who protect Ireland from danger. And the fourth book is like a history book, which tells us about the kings and queens of Ireland. So each book has its own heroes and own challenges and its own way of looking at the world. So the stories are like putting together a whole picture of ancient Irish people believed in. So here are the Irish mythical deities. Irish mythological characters include venerated kings, heroes, and gods. The first cycle of Irish mythology, aptly known as the mythological cycle, is comprised of stories outlining the fabled founding of Ireland by the Tuatha De Danann and later the Aussie. The Tuatha De Danann disappeared, giving rise to the Aussie, who existed in the parallel universe alongside venerated ancestors, ancient kings, and legendary heroes. This universe, called the Tir Nanog or the other world, can be accessed on certain occasions of sacred places, including burial mounds, fairy hills, stony circles, and cairns. So the stories are embedded there with also revolve around their creation myths. So the stories about the Tuatha De Danann and Ausir are also about how the world was created. So it's like they're trying to explain where everything came from and why there's magic in the world and how the fairies and the gods got here. So it's like a storybook of mysteries and wonder. So here's the explanation of Tuatha De Danann. So according to legend, the Tuatha De Danann or people of the goddess Danu were supernatural creatures with human forms that were skilled in magical arts. Their story is recorded in the Book of Invasions, one of the texts written by the 11th century monks that I've mentioned earlier. The Book of Invasions detailed how the godlike people descended into the Ireland with a thick fog that encompassed the land, and when the fog lifted, the Tuatha De Danann remained. When the Milesians, the ancient ancestor of the Irish people, arrived in Ireland, they conquered the land, and the Tuatha De Danann disappeared. Some legends say they left Ireland completely and permanently, retreating to the other world, while others say they blended together with the Milesians, passing some of the mythical deities into lives of the modern Irish people. So that was the Tuatha De Danann all about. So here are some of the most venerated figures of the Tuatha De Danann. So imagine a group of powerful and magical beings like the gods of ancient Ireland. These are the Tuatha De Danann, and they were the first people to live in Ireland. They were also powerful, that they were almost like God themselves. So, first is Dagda. So Dagda is the god of life and death, or the patriarch. Dagda, so the Dagda, he was like the father of the Tuatha De Danann, and he had power over life and death. He was also a great musician and a powerful warrior. And the second is Lear, the god of the sea. Lear was the god of the sea, and he ruled over all the oceans and waterways of Ireland. He was known for his wisdom and his love for the sea. Third is Ogma, the god of learning, the creator of Ogham script. So Ogma, he was the god of learning and knowledge, and he invented the Ogham alphabet, which was used to write the ancient Irish language, and he was also a great warrior and a powerful speaker. Next is Lag, the god of sun and light. Lag was the god of sun and light, and he was a skilled warrior, a great craftsman, and a talented musician. He was also known for his courage and his love for justice. Next is Brigid, goddess of health and fertility. So she was the goddess of health, fertility, and healing. She was known for her kindness and her ability to help people who were sick or in need. And next is Trididana, gods of crafts. Next is Goebnu, the blacksmith. And next is Credni, the goldsmith, and Luctain, the carpenter. So Goebnu, Credni, and Luctain are the three gods of crafts. They were three brothers who were masters of their crafts. Goebnu, the blacksmith, who could make any kind of weapon or tool. Credni, the goldsmith, who could create beautiful jewelry and other objects from gold. And Luctain, the carpenter, who who could build anything from a simple house to a magnificent palace. So these Tuatha De Danann were like the gods of ancient Ireland. They were watching over the land and protecting its people. And their stories are full of magic, wonder, and adventure, and they help us understand the beliefs and values of the ancient Irish people. So that's all for my report, and the continuation will be reported by Miss Joanna.